Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a special video discussing my review of the new release book, The Icarus Plot, by Timothy Zahn. This is a follow-up, sequel-ish, set in the same universe book as his book that came out in 1999, The Icarus Hunt, which was published by a different publisher, which I'll get to in my review because this is very interesting business stuff as well as interesting book stuff. But people have been clamoring for a sequel to this book. But if you don't know, Timothy Zahn has written a lot of books. He's most known for his Star Wars books. That's by far his best sellers. But he's written a lot of excellent original works. He also wrote things like the Cobra trilogy, the Conqueror's trilogy, and standalones Angel Mass and Manta's Gift. I actually have a review of Manta's Gift coming on the channel in a few weeks because I just read it, and spoiler, it was my favorite Timothy Zahn book ever. And so I've really enjoyed his original science fiction works. I think he's one of the best science fiction writers out there. But I enjoyed Icarus Hunt when it came out, but the fandom of Timothy Zahn loved this book when it came out. It's one of his better selling books. It's actually a book that hit the USA Today list years after it had already been released, which I find very interesting. That it had released and fine, and then the sales were good enough that it reached, probably the ebook sales were good enough that it reached the USA Today list. Anyway, people have been clamoring for a sequel to this book for years. And so finally, Timothy Zahn finally relented and decided to write the book, The Icarus Plot, or as I am calling it, The Icarus Hunt 2, Hunt Harder, which I think would have been a funny title. But no, The Icarus Plot actually works quite well because there's a lot of plots going along, both in the story, like story plots, and then also like schemes, plots. So this is a very excellently titled book. First thing I want to say about this book is that there are a lot of frustrating aspects about the production of this book. First of all, this is produced by Bane Publishers, not by Bantam Books. And Baen made the decision to only include in their bibliography page, the page where they include all of the author's other works, they chose only to include Timothy Zahn's novels that he's written with Baen. And it's a very interesting decision to do that because Icarus Hunt, the original book in this series, was not written by or produced by Baen. It was produced by Bantam. And so if you didn't know better, you wouldn't necessarily know that this was a sequel other than the title, but there's no indications in the book. There's no anything that reveals that it's a sequel. Even in the dust jacket doesn't reveal that it's the sequel. It's just you just have to know, and so it's very poor marketing. I think that they lost a ton in marketing that they could have had elsewhere, otherwise. And so it's very confusing. I assumed it was a sequel, but even I didn't know really until we got a clarification recently that it was. And even then, Timothy Zahn said it's not exactly a sequel. It's set in the same universe and has some of the same characters, but isn't exactly a sequel. And so I agree. I think that this is kind of a sequel, but kind of not. And so I was very frustrated by the production of this book. Likewise, it's very selfish, I find, when publishers will only include the books published by the author at that publisher and will include none of their other books. A lot of publishers do this. Simon & Schuster is the worst offender. Sometimes they won't even include this page in their Star Trek books from Gallery. They don't even include this page. But some publishers don't. Del Rey recently started doing that with Timothy Zahn's Star Wars novels. They only included his Star Wars novels in their list. They did not include any of his other novels, which I thought was ridiculous. I think that Tor is sometimes an offender in this direction. They do this with Robert Jordan's works, but with Timothy Zahn's novels that he's written with Tor, like Manta's Gift and Angel Mass, and also his other trilogy, the Sibyl's War trilogy, he actually includes his full list of books that he's written, and then there's an asterisk by all of the Tor books so that they can give special attention to the ones from that publisher, which I think is the right way to go. I'm fine with them drawing attention, saying, hey, look, pick these books. These are our books. I'm fine doing that, but you should include the list of all the author's books. Okay, that was a little rant. I'm a little bit frustrated by that, but anyway, now on to the book itself. If you enjoyed the Icarus Hunt, particularly the twists and the turns in the Icarus Hunt, you will love the Icarus Plot. This book is like the first book, but on steroids. Timothy Zahn goes all out in the climax of this book with his twists and turns. And I'm using his words, he calls this a puzzle box book. And it is absolutely a puzzle box book. The first 2/3 of the book is a straightforward track down a character. And it's very, very easy to follow. There are aspects of characters that you don't realize everything that's happening, but you understand the general story. The last third of the book goes off the rails with just mysteries and twists and changes and reveals, lots of reveals in the last third of the book. And I like mysteries. I love twists and turns. Timothy Zahn does a great job in most of his books in having a mystery element. Particularly, that's one reason his Star Wars books are so good, is he does great with mystery in his Star Wars books. But here it was too much. He laid it too thick. The book's only 340 pages, and almost 140 of those pages are devoted just to the twists and turns at the end. And I thought it was a bit too much. He could have toned it down a lot. Put a little bit more action, put a little bit more straightforward storytelling, spend more time in the tracking down the characters, because I think that was a much stronger element of the book than to have so much devoted to the puzzle box at the end. I think that some people will really enjoy the puzzle box aspect of this and will really enjoy trying to figure out what the end game is. Because even when information is revealed, you don't know whether you have everything or not. You think, okay, I finally figured this out. Whoa, there's something else I don't know. And it was just frustrating to me, the ending. Talking about the first 2/3, it is a straight up chase. The two main characters who you see on the cover, Gregory Rourke and his work partner, Celine, they are tasked by this group to hunt down a woman named Tara C. Tara, if you've read the Icarus Hunt, you'll remember she is one of the members of the Icarus Project. Again, if you haven't read this book, everything's perfectly explained, so you don't need to have. Tara has information that these people want, and they're willing to go to extreme lengths to get her and get that information. And so we're following Gregory and Celine. Particularly, it's a first-person narrative following Gregory, kind of like the first-person narrative of Icarus Hunt was following Jordan McKell, which is a very interesting choice for sci-fi. Sci-fi isn't usually first-person, so to get this is kind of interesting. It almost felt like it had elements of YA to it because it was first-person, because adult novels typically are third-person, so it was interesting to see first-person. Regarding the characters, I love the two main characters of Gregory Rourke and Celine, particularly Gregory. He's he has a lot of little tics about him. He has personality traits that I highly enjoyed. Particularly his humor is really good. He made me laugh throughout the book, Zahn did. Also, the main character has some really deep conflicting things that he's dealing with in this book. And Zahn does a good job of balancing that without making it too heavy. It's still a pretty light book overall, but the main character has some things he's dealing with. They have a funny dynamic between them. And what's interesting is that Zahn's weakest aspect of all of his writing across the board, Star Wars, non-Star Wars, you name it, his biggest weakness is his ability to write romantic relationships. Either they're not present at all, or they're just barely there. And it is just barely hinted at in this book. And I think that Zahn would have won a lot more applause from me had he gone heavily into the romance, because I liked the connection that the two characters had, and instead you get this little offhand reference. I also really like the humor from the other characters. There's a lot of aliens in this book, and the aliens have some great lines. In particular, there is a running gag in the book where these aliens have trouble identifying which human they're looking for, and in their words, they say, because all humans look alike to us, which is just a hilarious bit, and it's used 3 times in the book, and every time it cracked me up. It reminded me of that Family Guy sketch where the Chinese man says, "All you Americans look alike." It was just so humorous the way Zahn deployed that kind of reversal. Like if the humans had said that about the aliens, it would have come off as perhaps a little bit racist. But when they say that to the humans, it's quite funny. And so the humor in this is on point. And really, I was on the edge of my seat for the first 2/3 of the book. I couldn't wait to find out what would happen next. There were still twists and turns, but they were more traditional story. Now we're captured. Now we captured you. Now we escaped. It's traditional story beats. And they're just fun, and they're action-packed, and they're quick, and Zahn has world building, but doesn't spend too much time. He was never the heaviest of world builders in his books. He does have a lot of it, but not as much as like a Brandon Sanderson might. But still, the world building here is great. And the villains, I'll call them in the book, it's hard to explain without giving spoilers, but the villains in the book I thought were very effective. But the problem is the last third of the book is just the puzzle box, and he just goes too far. It's too much. Trimmed down the end to about 50 pages instead of 140, and instead spend the other 90 pages focused on the character development of Gregory and Celine, maybe spend a little bit more time with the action, maybe spend time with other characters that pop up but not as much. Can't give spoilers, but anyway, I think that this book could have been edited at the end quite a lot better. But still, I highly enjoyed this book. Highly enjoyed it. And I had a lot of fun reading it. And I think that we need to continue to support authors like Timothy Zahn, who have huge sales with their media tie-in properties and then don't register on the radar with their original works. Timothy Zahn is an amazing writer, and his Star Wars stuff is great, and I will continue to buy and read his Star Wars stuff. But his non-Star Wars should still be read, and same with other authors that you like for Star Wars. If you like their Star Wars work, you should go try their original works, because oftentimes the style is similar and you will enjoy it. And so I'm glad I read this book. Timothy Zahn has become and is still remaining an auto-buy author for me. I one day hope to have all of his books, although I have nowhere near all of them. I probably only have about half at the moment, if not even that. So I highly enjoyed this book, and I give it a 7 out of 10. A solid book, but not an amazing book. A solid book. I really am curious to see what everyone's reactions are to the twists at the end. I really am curious. It's not my style. For instance, Icarus Hunt, I talk about how Zahn at the 1999 through about 2002, he had 3 standalone novels come out. He had Icarus Hunt, he had Angel Mass, and then he had Manta's Gift. I've always said, of the 3 of these, I think that Icarus Hunt is the weakest, and yet it's by far the book that's most known in the community and probably most reviewed and most talked about. So I find that very interesting that this one was the one that took off when these are much better books. So if you've read the Icarus Hunt, and even if you have or haven't read Icarus Plot, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you intend to read this? Do you have no interest? Don't let my negative aspects of this book tear you down, because this is still a positive review. 7 out of 10 is a very good rating for an author to get. I was very, overall, still pleased with the book. I just didn't like the ending that much. But anyway, that's my review. Please like and subscribe to the channel to see more Timothy Zahn science fiction and other sci-fi, fantasy, media tie-in fiction reviews. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.